Welcome back. All right, so with the news now coming out that John Klingberg is signing a one-year deal with the Ducks for $7 million, and immediately everybody's trading him at the deadline, I don't know. I look at this and I think, this may very well be one of those deals that if it works, maybe he sticks around. So John Klingberg, I think, overplayed his hand. His plan was to get an 8-year contract. At least he wanted an 8-year contract in Dallas. Dallas didn't like that kind of term. There aren't a lot of teams with the kind of cap space left to sign a guy for $7 million. And the Ducks did it, and now they're at the floor. But the one thing I'm wondering with the Ducks is that, yes, the rebuild word's been used by Pat Verbeek and all of that, and I don't think he's not necessarily in a rebuild. But one thing that I don't see when I look at this Ducks roster is a team that's tanking. I don't see a team that's trying to get that number one draft pick. Now, I'm also going to say in terms of teams that desperately need a Connor Bedard in their lineup, I don't have the Ducks top three right now. So it makes some sense to look at last year's results where they made some minor improvement in the standings and say, you know what, we should stay the course and maybe add some players. And they've done that this offseason. They've added some depth. They've added a couple of forwards. They've added a defenseman now in Klingberg, once this deal's finalized, of course. And so, yeah, this could very well be a good thing. They still have $18 million in cap space. So Pat Verbeek could work the phones right now and try to make another deal and try to make a deal or two, right? There are still some big names on the market. What if they came out of nowhere and said, hey, we've just signed Kadri for $8 million for 5 years? And as crazy as that sounds, I mean, the Ducks have done pretty well in the past. I think that with Pat Verbeek at the helm, I think things could get pretty good again. So if we look at where they're at, they have some big restricted free agents next year. So we can look at the cap space and say, wow, they've got so much. But you have to watch out for next year. Next year you have Zegras, you have Comtois, you have Terry, Drysdale, and Dostal. Dostal is their number 3 goaltender. Odds are he doesn't get a big raise, but in the event that there's an injury with one of their goaltenders and he gets into some games and gets good stats, that could drive up his price, right? You've got Zegras, who's going to get paid. You've got Troy Terry, which if he has another season like the one he just enjoyed, he's going to get paid. Comtois, if he bounces back from an off season last year, he's going to make some serious coin. And Drysdale, who might be the future on their blue line, is going to get paid next year. So it's going to be an interesting season, really, for Anaheim. If you look down the left side, you've got Henrique, Comtois, Jones, and Grant. Now, this is one area that I think maybe could use a little bit of beefing up. But again, you've got 4 NHL-level players. I think if Max Jones could show a little bit of a upward trajectory in his career, that'd be great. They parted with Sam Steele. They've kept Max Jones. We'll see if this is Jones's last go-around with the Ducks or what happens there. But down the middle, they've got Zegras, they've got Strome. In all likelihood, Mason McTavish plays for them down the middle this year. He may end up on the wing, though. And Lundestrom, who they've just re-signed not too long ago. So they're down the middle. If that ends up being the 1 through 4, that's pretty good. I'm just going to say that's not bad. And again, it depends on McTavish having that really good rookie season, which, by the way, he was playing at the end of his junior year this year. Yeah, he looks ready. Then on the right side, you have Terry, Vetrano, Silverberg, Carrick. Well, Silverberg has to stay healthy. Sam Carrick has to build on the season he had last year. Terry has to show, again, as I mentioned, that last season is an example of what he's going to be and not have some kind of a drop down this year. But Vetrano's a good player, and he can score you 20 goals. So I really think that for Anaheim, while some may look at this forward group and say, well, it's not good enough for the playoffs, right, but there's enough here that with the right coaching, with the right amount of systems in place, they can make it tough for other teams to beat them. They could play very well defensively. Then for your depth, you've got Grew, you've got Godin, you've got Perreault. If Jacob Perreault could break through and jump onto this roster, that'd be perfect for them. Or Tracy. Is Tracy going to make that breakthrough? Is he going to be an NHL player? As each year goes by, it makes it look more unlikely, but he's still young enough that maybe he has that year this year. And Gaucher, who was their first-round pick this year, he is already signed to a contract. So there are some prospects that are interesting. Again, Jacob Perreault would be the one I think might be most likely to jump into the lineup and bump somebody down. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. And then you get into the blue line. The left side looks weak. What it tells me is either there's a deal coming or somebody on the right side is going to end up playing on the left side. On the left side, and this is left-handed defenseman, you have Fowler, Vakanainen, and Benoit. On the right side, right-handed defenseman, you have Klingberg, if, added, Klingberg, Drysdale, Shattenkirk, and Mahura. So that tells me that maybe Shattenkirk ends up switching over to the left side. It is not optimal to have a defenseman playing on his offside. It is not optimal for them on if you're doing that on the power play, but even 5-on-5, it is not a situation that you want to employ regularly. Some defensemen do well playing on their offside, but you really want to have 3 left defensemen, 3 right defensemen. So my guess is one of the guys on the right switches over to the left, or maybe there's another deal coming from Pat Verbeek. Depth on the blue line, Colton White, they just added Ulevy. There's some depth there. Strand, John Moore, and Mintyukov. Mintyukov, of course, they drafted 10th overall. He has signed a contract. If he could step in and play on the blue line right away. Again, prospects may decide how far the Ducks do or don't go this year. If the prospects are ready, if guys jump in that aren't expected to and play well, it might leave Pat Verbeek in an interesting position where he may not be selling at the deadline. But he might be, right? And that's in all likelihood what happens, but we'll see. In net, you have Gibson. They're going to be looking for a bounce-back year from Gibson. I think he's capable of that, too. I still think John Gibson, when he's at his best, I think he could be a top 10 goaltender in the league. And you have Stolarz as the backup. Stolarz had a very good year this past season, but if he falters, you do have Dostal who's in waiting. Dostal's 22 years of age. In all likelihood, Dostal is going to have another year in the AHL, and then he'll probably have a shot at the job next year because Stolarz is UFA next summer. But again, it's a good problem to have. Having one too many goaltenders, as long as you have one that's waiver exempt, I think that's a good thing. So I will never complain about a team having way too many goaltenders as long as they know how to employ them and where to place those goaltenders. So don't have a guy playing in the ECHL who should be in the AHL. Figure a way out. But yeah, for the Anaheim Ducks, I like what they're doing. I like this a lot. And all of that cap space means that either you can weaponize this if you're Pat Verbeek and use it to help another team out. There are teams that want to sign Kadri and they don't have the cap space. So let's say, for instance, that the New York Islanders are looking to make cap space to bring in Kadri. I'm just using them as an example. Maybe the Ducks go in and say, well, all right, we'll take one of your left side defensemen then. And we'll take whatever bad contract or whatever you want, or maybe a left-handed defenseman signed to a pretty expensive deal. And then that would help balance out their blue line, and then maybe you throw in a Shattenkirk. Shattenkirk has a modified no-trade clause, so you have to watch for the no-trade and no-movement clauses too, because those will bite you, right, Dodonov? Anyways, this is going to be an interesting season, I think, for Anaheim. I think it's easy to forget that the first half of last season, the Ducks were playing pretty well. They stayed in the hunt for a playoff spot, and then they just dropped way off the map at the trade deadline and beyond. And so it's easy to focus on that and lose sight of the fact that this was a team that stayed competitive through that first half of the season. And I like their additions. I think Strome, Vetrano, Klingberg, these are all legitimate, good players. Strome, Vetrano can excel. I do wonder with Vetrano if he does get top 6 minutes. And again, I brought this over from Cap Friendly. The only one I didn't is I added Klingberg to the top 2. They're not paying him $7 million to not be in the top 2. But if Vetrano doesn't, live up to the hype, and if he ends up dropping down, that's where Silverberg being healthy is huge. Or potentially Perreault being able to jump in and perform right away. A lot of it could depend on McTavish as well, how he performs in his rookie season. But I don't think this is going to be a boring team to watch. I think this is going to be kind of a fun team to watch. Oddly enough, in saying that, if they're winning games, odds are they might be 2-1, 1-0. They might look like boring games to some from the outside. But for the Ducks and for their fans, it is a gradual build that I think has the potential to turn around relatively quickly with the right moves from here by Pat Verbeek. I've been impressed with what he's done so far, and we'll see what he does from here. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.